from the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang, and here are the news. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. vowed to accelerate the Philippines' digital transformation, stressing that technology must be harnessed not only to modernize systems but also to bridge inequalities and improve Filipinos' lives. Speaking at the Manila Tech Summit 2025, President Marcos highlighted the country's progress, noting that more than half of payment transactions in 2024 were made digitally because of the advancement in financial technologies that made paying bills and sending remittances safer and less burdensome. He also touted that in 2024 alone, digital economy reached 2.25 trillion pesos, accounting for 8.5% of the country's gross domestic product and generating around 11.3 million jobs. President Marcos cited several government initiatives aimed at building a truly digital Philippines, including the National Fiber Backbone or NFB, which is expected to provide 17 million Filipinos with faster and more reliable internet by 2028. He added that the full rollout of the Philippine Identification System would streamline access to financial services. President Marcos said his administration is also expanding the free Wi-Fi for all program in schools to give students and teachers in far-flung areas better access to digital resources. He, however, acknowledged the risks brought by rapid technological advancements such as online scams, fraud, and cybersecurity threats. President Marcos cited several government interventions such as the enactment of laws including the Anti-Financial Account Scamming Act, the Internet Transactions Act, and the Subscriber Identity Module or SIM Registration Act. He also warned of the dangers of online gambling and the disruptive potential of artificial intelligence, particularly in job displacement and privacy concerns. To address the problem, President Marcos said the government is reskilling and upskilling more Filipinos, training them for jobs in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, e-commerce, and creative industries. President Marcos urged industry leaders and innovators to make the Philippines a fintech innovation hub and a key voice in shaping the global financial system.
Digital technology in the country has grown by leaps and bounds since the pandemic. And in the face of this crisis, the Filipinos' ingenuity and innovation allowed us to harness digital wallets, online stores, and e-marketing to keep the wheels of our economy alive. Now, this is a good development, but there is much room for growth. We see the greater need to tap the endless possibilities of a truly digital Philippines. We are determined to seize that growth. But we must also recognize that progress comes with challenges. Any powerful tool cuts both ways. In this digital age, we must become more vigilant against the risks that come with it. And this is why we must also strengthen our defenses, manage risks, block malicious attempts before they harm. There is also the growing problem of online gambling, which preys on our people's vulnerabilities. We are addressing this through initial measures such as suspending the in-app gambling access in mobile payment apps and websites. This way, we can help protect our citizens and preserve the integrity of our financial system. Titiyakin natin na maitatayo ang mga infrastruktura at mapalakas ang mga polisiya upang makasabay ang ating bansa sa bilis ng pagbabago ng mundo. Because the connected nation that we dream of will only come online if we all choose to build it, brick by brick, gigabyte by gigabyte.
The Manila Tech Summit marked its fifth year with a push to position the Philippines as a key player in the global fintech ecosystem, gathering over 1,300 delegates from more than 300 organizations. The summit, carrying the theme Forging a New Global Order, Risks and Opportunities Redefined, was organized by FinTech Alliance PH, the country's largest digital industry association, representing over 130 companies that drive more than 95% of digital retail transactions.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine Department of Agriculture's Disaster Risk Reduction and Management, or DA-DRRM, Operations Center said agricultural interventions are in place amid the possible effects of the rains caused by the low pressure area, or LPA, and the southwest monsoon, or habagat. According to the DA-DRRM Bulletin Number 2, 7 regions were projected to be at risk from the combined effects of the LPA and the habagat: Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Mimaropa, Bicol, Western Visayas, and Negros Island region. Consolidated areas in the aforementioned regions are around 770,461 hectares, with majority, or around 628,224 hectares, planted with rice and 142,237 hectares planted with corn. Among the available interventions are prepositioned agricultural input, drugs, and biologics, the DA-DRRM said. These include 124,094 bags of rice, 77,842 bags of corn, and 12,080 bags of vegetable seeds. For its part, the National Food Authority said it has 2,378,903 bags of available rice stocks for issuance to local government units and other disaster relief agencies. Registered farmers who may be affected may also access the Survival and Recovery Loan Program under the Agricultural Credit Policy Council, worth 25,000 pesos with no interest and payable for 3 years, indemnification under the Philippine Crop Insurance Corporation, and the Quick Response Fund for Rehabilitation and Recovery. The DA-DRRM earlier advised farmers and fishers to conduct early harvest for mature crops, relocate equipment, animals, and fish stocks and vessels, and monitor local weather advisories to help minimize the impact of inclement weather.
Dateline Malacañang.
The new head of the Office of Civil Defense, or OCD, formally assumed command of the Disaster Response Agency on Tuesday. Undersecretary Harold Cabreros took his oath as OCD Administrator before Department of National Defense, or DND, Secretary Gilberto Chodoro in a ceremony at Camp Aguinaldo, Quezon City. A DND statement said Cabreros replaced OCD Officer in Charge and Concurrent Deputy Administrator for Administration, Assistant Secretary Bernardo Rafaelito Alejandro IV. Alejandro was named OCD Officer in Charge in June. After then, OCD Chief Ariel Nepomuceno was appointed Bureau of Customs Commissioner. Teodoro expressed confidence in Cabreros' leadership and capabilities to steer the country's comprehensive civil defense and disaster resilience programs in support of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. Cabreros previously served as Director of the Rehabilitation and Recovery Management Service of the OCD. A member of Philippine Military Academy class of 1984, he joined the agency in 2017 shortly after his retirement from the military. The OCD is the primary government agency mandated to implement and administer policies, strategies, and systems to reduce the country's vulnerabilities and risks to hazards, as well as manage the consequences of disasters.
Dateline Malacañang.
The National Anti-Poverty Commission, Formal Labor and Migrant Workers Sectoral Council, or NAPSI-FLM WSC, has expressed support for the Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, advisory, raising the minimum monthly wage of Filipino domestic workers overseas from $400 to at least $500. In a news release, NAPSI-FLM WSC Sectoral Representative Danilo Lacerna described the move as long overdue and a vital step in recognizing the indispensable role of Filipino domestic workers in the global care economy. The group said the wage hike directly addresses the rising global cost of living, prevents exploitation through underpayment, and boosts remittances that sustains millions of Filipino families. To ensure effective implementation, the NAPSI-FLM WSC urged the DMW to strengthen the monitoring and enforcement capacity of migrant workers' offices. It also called on the agency to uphold the new wage standards through bilateral labor agreements, provide comprehensive pre-deployment training, and expand reintegration support for returning workers. As a government sectoral representative for formal labor and migrant workers, the NAPSI-FLM WSC called on other concerned agencies to fully implement and institutionalize the new wage policy. The council said this landmark adjustment should serve as a springboard for more pro-labor reforms that uplift the lives of Filipino workers, both in the country and abroad.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippine Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, displayed its commitment to protect the rights and welfare of overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, with the release of almost 1 million pesos in financial aid to sick migrant workers in Hong Kong. In a social media post on Monday night, DMW Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak said its Migrant Workers Office, or MWO, in Hong Kong released 949,136.47 pesos to 12 OFWs suffering from serious illnesses on Sunday under the Agarang Kalinga at Saklolo para sa mga OFWs na nangangailangan, or Action Fund. Secretary Kakdak stressed that the initiative underscores the Philippine government's continuing efforts to deliver immediate and effective relief to OFWs in distress, ensuring their safety, security, and well-being. Beyond the cash aid, he said the Action Fund also covers legal services, medical and repatriation assistance, shipment of remains, and other interventions. The DMW encouraged OFWs in Hong Kong seeking help to visit the MWO Hong Kong office located on the 29th floor of the United Center in Admiralty.
Dateline Malacañang.
Lieutenant General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. assumed command of the Philippine National Police, or PNP, in a surprise ceremony presided over by the Philippine Department of the Interior and Local Government, or DILG, Secretary John Vic Remulla at Camp Crame in Quezon City. Nartates replaced General Nicolas Torre III, who did not show up for the ceremony but relayed to Remulla that he acknowledged the order. The turnover of command came just a few hours after news broke that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., in an order signed by Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin, had ordered Torre's relief. Secretary Remulla said President Marcos' desire to uphold the authority of the National Police Commission, or NAPOLCOM, which has administrative control and operational supervision over the PNP, was among the reasons for Torres' relief. Remulla said the president has directed him and Nartates to present within 1 month a comprehensive citizen security strategy, focusing on increasing police presence throughout the country and ensuring that every Filipino feels secure in their communities. Torre previously disregarded a NAPOLCOM resolution reversing his August 6 order to reassign some PNP officials, including his eventual successor, Nartates. In his order, Torre reassigned Nartates, who at the same time headed the PNP's Deputy Chief for Administration, to switch posts with his classmate at the Philippine Military Academy, PMA Tanglao Diwa, class of 1992. Lieutenant General Bernard Banac, who was commander of the Area Police Command Western Mindanao. On August 14, the NAPOLCOM issued an order invalidating the revamp order involving Nartates and Banac. The same NAPOLCOM order made its own revamp involving at least 10 senior police officers in some key positions that included the National Capital Region Police Office or NCRPO, Criminal Investigation and Detection Group or CIDG, and the Police Regional Office PRO-4A or Calabarzon. The NAPOLCOM order triggered the issuance of various manifestos of support for Torre, almost all coming from PNP Academy classes and PNPA graduates, as Torre was the first Lacan PNPA graduate appointed as PNP chief. Remulla said President Marcos's decision was made in the interest of national security.
The palace affirms that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has made the difficult but necessary decision to relieve PNP Chief Police General Nicolas Torre III of his duties. The President believes that his national security apparatus must always work within the framework of the law. With the recent developments, the President was presented with the facts, and he determined that the best course of action is to uphold the role of NAPOLCOM as it was intended by law. As part of this resolution, the President decided to relieve Police General Torre. This was not an easy choice, but it was made in the national interest. The President is committed to ensuring a unified direction and collaboration across all areas in his cabinet, particularly those responsible for delivering security, peace, and order. Nevertheless, the mission must continue. The Filipinos must be safe. To this end, the President has directed the incoming PNP Chief, General Nartates, together with the Secretary of the Interior Local Government, to present within 1 month a comprehensive citizen security strategy focused on increasing police presence throughout the country and ensuring that every Filipino feels secure in their communities.
Secretary Remulla clarified that Torre was neither charged with any administrative or criminal case nor committed any violation of the law. According to Remulla, Torre, a 4-star general, was given the option to retire and was also being considered for another government post. With a 4-star rank still with Torre, Nartates has to wait for him to be a full-fledged chief PNP, since there can only be one 4-star ranked police general based on PNP policy. Remulla said it will be up to the NAPOLCOM to deal with the matter if Torre refuses to give up his 4-star rank through an early retirement.
Precisely because we are a country of laws and not of men, that the institutions must be larger than the people who run it. And in this case, the President saw it necessary that the institution of the PNP and the NAPOLCOM be upheld as according to the spirit of the law as it was created. General Torre has been informed of his relief. He has the option of retiring or staying, but the question of the 4-star will be with the NAPOLCOM to take up, but that is a collateral issue only to that who will be running the PNP, which will be formally, as of today, General Nartates. That is precisely why we are doing this, because we want to take politics out of the equation. When you have issues arising, you must resolve it according to the rules of the institution, and that's what we are doing. This is not a popularity contest. This is a question of maintaining the integrity of the institution. He did not violate any laws. He has not been charged with any violations. He has not been charged criminally nor admissively. It is simply a choice of the president to take a new direction for the PNP. He didn't violate any laws. He has not been charged with any administrative case. He has not been charged with any criminal case. But he is a presidential appointee who serves at the pleasure of the president, and the president has made a decision to go in another direction.
In his recent meeting with President Marcos to discuss Torres' replacement, Remulla recounted that the president had said he was considering a government position for the relieved PNP chief. Remulla said the chief executive has been thinking of putting Torres' vast government service experience to good use in other positions in the national government. President Marcos chose Torre to replace Romel Francisco Marbil as PNP chief on June 2, 2025, exactly 85 days ago. Torre was instrumental in the arrest of Kingdom of Jesus Christ leader Apollo Kibuloy last year and the serving of an arrest warrant on former President Rodrigo Duterte in March this year. Torres' mandatory retirement is in March 2027. Meanwhile, Nartates was sworn in as the 32nd Chief PNP on Tuesday. Like Torre, he is set to retire in March 2027. In his assumption speech, Nartates said Torres' programs, including the police's 5-minute response time campaign, will continue. He vowed to pursue proactive crime prevention, emphasizing his goal of ensuring that people can walk the streets safely and without fear. Asked if there was a rift that led to this shakeup, Nartates said there was none that he was aware of. Even before, Nartates was already considered as the PNP chief in waiting, a belief among PNP senior officers that was reinforced by his appointment to several key posts. Nartates held the position of director of the PNP Finance Service before he was named as a regional director of the Police Regional Office 4A, one of the coveted posts at the PNP. He was later appointed as NCRPO chief before his designation as the PNP's number 2 man, or the deputy chief for administration. In a statement, the PNP acknowledged Malacañang's directive to relieve Torre and also welcomed the appointment of Nartates Jr. as its new chief.
Dateline Malacañang.
A Philippine Navy or PN official Tuesday said increased Chinese presence and maritime activity in Ayungin Shoal will not affect the conduct of rotation and resupply or RORE missions for the contingent manning of the BRP Sierra Madre. PNP spokesperson, or rather PN, Philippine Navy spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, WPS Rear Admiral Roy Vincent Trinidad in a press briefing said, the rotation and reprovisioning of forces will still be conducted regardless of any threat and any coercive aggression action, citing that it is a moral obligation of the leadership of the armed forces. The World War II era vessel BRP Sierra Madre has been grounded in Ayungin Shoal since 1999 and serves as a symbol of Philippine sovereignty in the area. Referring to the small contingent of soldiers manning the ship, Trinidad said, we owe it to the men and women in the front lines to provide them with the appropriate support that they need, especially food and other important supplies. Past RORE missions in Ayungin Shoal had begun with aggressive actions from China, including harassment, obstruction, and water cannon attacks. Department of National Defense DND Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. earlier said the Philippines will not alter its position on WPS despite reports of increased Chinese presence in Ayungin Shoal, stressing that any shift would be to the great detriment of our national interest. As of Monday, The PN has monitored 13 Chinese maritime militia vessels, 2 China Coast Guard or CCG ships, and 1 People's Liberation Army Navy tugboat in Ayungin Shoal. On August 25, CCG ships were detected along with 11 rigid-hulled inflatable boats, fast boats, and 9 maritime militia vessels. The Philippines has consistently asserted its sovereign rights over Ayungin Shoal and the broader WPS anchored on the 2016 arbitral award that invalidated China's sweeping 9-line claim over the South China Sea.
Dateline Malacañang.
Contingency measures are in place in case of any untoward incident that might arise due to the coercive and aggressive actions of Chinese maritime forces in the West Philippine Sea or WPS. Philippine Navy spokesperson for the WPS Rear Admiral Roy Vincent Trinidad said this in a press briefing. Trinidad was responding to a question on whether the military's rules of engagement in WPS has already been updated to include the use of lethal force. He said the death of a Filipino in WPS as a result of China's aggressive actions would be the red line, as earlier stated by Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., the military's commander-in-chief. Such incident, Trinidad said, would also be grounds to invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty with the United States.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Bea Gaza-de Guzman.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.